It seems like everyone is chiming in on this issue at this point. For a moment, let's be honest. Cheryl Swoops has been pursuing Caitlin Clark with some of the most bizarre and baseless charges imaginable for the past year. We're talking about strange accusations that she is a 25-year-old playing against teenagers, that her record-breaking rookie season wasn't really that terrific, and even that no one in the league wants to play with her. It was simply this unrelenting assault of negativity that, to be honest, seemed to last forever. Beers, they will recognize, her game, but they won't recognize her impact. Grog, how can you separate the two? Then, when it appeared that the cacophony would never end, Cheryl Miller, a former coach of Clark's and a real basketball grade, entered the ring. She called Swoops a gigantic idiot and methodically dismantled all the false myths on the All the Smoke podcast, delivering what can only be described as a knockout punch to the critics. Fans are ecstatic to see Miller finally put Swoops in her proper place. However, her fervent defense of Caitlin Clark also raises an entirely unexpected question regarding the future of the Indiana Fever. Are you ready for this? Come on. Player of the Year, two-time national championship, two-time tournament MVP, first woman to dunk in an organized game, gold medalist. Thank you for making time. Welcome to the show, Cheryl Miller. Let's just stand back for a while before we analyze every potent statement Miller made. Have you ever truly paused to consider why one of basketball's greatest icons appears to be so devoted to eliminating the WNBA's most promising young star? It's a worthwhile inquiry. Let's take a closer look at Cheryl Swoops' peculiar and tenacious campaign against Caitlin Clark, a campaign that followed her throughout her first season and began back in her college days. We'll talk about how much more experience that gives you over other players coming in rank. For people say, dang, like he or she's killing them, but you have a 25-year-old playing against a It all started when Swoops made these incredibly untrue statements regarding Clark's illustrious collegiate record. Swoops asserted that Clark was a 25-year-old competing against 20-year-olds while attending Iowa, which may have been her most absurd claim to date. Let's now be really clear about the situation's reality. Like many other college seniors, Clark was just 22 years old and in her fourth year of competition. Swoops attempted to backtrack when questioned about this flagrant lie, saying that it was all exaggeration pertaining to CO qualifying regulations. A really flimsy defense that completely failed to withstand any examination. I say that because when she comes to the league, regardless of what team she goes to that has vet on that, she most likely won't receive 40 shots every day. But trust me when I say that Swoops was just getting started. In an attempt to portray Clark as a conceited, ball-hogging volume shooter, she continued by asserting that she took 40 shots per game. In actuality, Clark averaged a far more sensible 22.7 shots per game. According to the data, the fact that Swoops herself averaged 19.2 shots per game during her own senior year, just 3 fewer than Clark, makes this assertion particularly absurd. Imagine hurling stones from a glass home. Swoops adjusted their strategy after that story failed, particularly when Clark was on the verge of breaking the all-time NCAA scoring record by suggesting that it would take a 5th year for Clark to do so. Caitlin, if you're going to break a record, to me, if it's legitimate, you have to break that record in the same amount of time that that player set it. Okay, right. So if Kelsey Plum set that record in 4 years, well, Caitlin should have broke that record in 4 years. But because there's a COVID year, and then there's another year, you know what I mean? So she's already had an extra year to break that record. So is it truly a broken? Naturally, this was entirely incorrect. Swoops then confidently declared that Clark wouldn't be able to rule the league when she joined the WNBA. However, Swoops conveniently chose not to use the co-eligibility rule, which would have given Clark a 5th year of college ball, as she began to break rookie assist records and establish herself as one of the league's top playmakers. Ultimately, the figures are self-explanatory. With an average of 19.2 points and a league-high 8.4 assists per game at the end of her remarkable debut season, Clark silenced all skeptics and earned Rookie of the Year. She wouldn't be good. What I feared was I didn't think Caitlin or Angel would come into the league and dominate immediately, which I don't think either of them did. Swoop's appearance on Angel Reese's podcast when she continued to denigrate Clark while simultaneously asserting that she doesn't hate her, was possibly the most telling of all. It was really a typical textbook illustration of someone claiming one thing, but doing very else, exposing the hypocrisy to the public. The ongoing criticism became unavoidable once the entire basketball community began to see this troubling pattern. In the end, it had actual repercussions. Another legend, Nancy Lieberman, took Swoop's place in the booth after she was prohibited from covering an Indiana Fever game. Unlike Swoops, Lieberman wasn't scared to confront the incorrect information being spread about the league's rookie star, the treadmill, and I called her as a friend. I said, you can say whatever you want. You can have your own opinion about anybody, but you do have to get the statistics right. I mean, facts matter. And if you did get ahead of this and just say, hey, I made a mistake on my numbers, then this thing is over and everybody respects you for your opinion. And, you might like Boston, I might like the Yankees. It's okay to have difference of opinions. Or she got upset with me on the phone, and I was like, Cheryl, I'm not doing anything to hurt you. I'm just sharing. We're talking. And so our relationship, it pretty much is not happening at this point. I tried to talk to her at the Final Four. She didn't want to talk to me. My life's going to be good or great with or without Cheryl Swoops. The basketball world finally found someone with unquestionable legitimacy to join the Caitlin Clark conversation when Cheryl Miller entered the All the Smoke podcast studio and utterly lit up the naysayers. This is when the tale really takes a turn. What happens then when a real basketball legend, someone who has actually coached Clark, decides she's had enough of this crap? You get one of the strongest and most authentic defenses in women's basketball history. Miller thought about how much strain Clark was under. She pointed out that receiving criticism all the time can make you feel as though you must constantly prove yourself, perhaps more than you were correct at times. Here is the unpleasant reality of the entire circumstance. The unquestionable reality that Clark's presence has enhanced the league overall is something that Clark's critics simply refuse to admit. We are discussing a huge increase in media attention, ticket sales, and viewership, all of which immediately benefit everyone, including their own salary. You see, Miller had a front row seat to evaluate Clark's performance beyond all the highlight clips and media spin after having the opportunity to coach him firsthand at the 2025 WNBA All-Star Game. Even she was astonished to see Clark up close. Miller's defense is so powerful and hard to ignore because of this own personal experience. I'm going to be honest because it needs to be said, I could relate to that young lady, and I felt for her. I know what it's like to be hated. I know what it's like to be a black woman and hated because I was pleased to discover that the story wasn't true, as Miller herself expressed it. She deftly dismantled months' worth of unfavorable media narratives with that one potent comment. However, she didn't end there. Miller went even farther, offering genuinely original insight into what makes Clark such a remarkable talent. By doing this, she was able to cut through all the clutter and arrive at the reality. And imagine this young lady, I don't want to use hate, but despised. And people just having, she brought some on herself, because she's cocky for a good reason. And I love that about her. But to watch the dynamics and the media, they had their narrative. And I was pleased and proud to see the narrative wasn't. Even though Miller's technical study of Clark's in-court skills is quite accurate, it actually hides something far more significant, a genuine emotional bond that forms during Clark's most difficult moments. When the Fever eventually achieved their first win of the 2025 campaign, this became abundantly evident. Miller did more than just offer Clark his congratulations at that precise moment. When the rookie needed it most, she offered her sincere, unwavering support. Taya said, I didn't know how talented she was and how well she sees the game in a 3D version. Thinker, defensively a lot better than I thought and gave her credit for. So watching her and just spending a little time, and what the guys that I've learned is to step back and let these kids be them. Miller and Clark gave each other an embrace after Indiana's first triumph, which was much more than just a playful moment between two basketball players. It was a pivotal, impactful moment that illustrated how isolated Clark had felt throughout the initial onslaught of criticism surrounding her league debut. When she noticed me, I gave her the greatest hug I could manage, and she exclaimed, "Oh, man, finally someone who's on my side," Miller said, recalling the overwhelming intensity of that moment. Miller continued, "She was being struck with everything from left to right." Miller didn't just offer some useless platitudes during that really dangerous moment. Instead, he offered the kind of guidance that only someone who has been a similar difficult path can offer. These weren't just words of comfort. For a rookie who is drowning in a sea of expectations and intense scrutiny, they were a lifeline. "I'm very proud of you," Miller said to her. Use this as a formula by keeping you no matter what," she went on. When Cheryl Miller talks, the basketball community listens, and for good reason. 3 Naismith Player of the Year honors, 2 national titles, an Olympic gold medal, and, of course, a place in the Basketball Hall of Fame are just a few examples of the remarkable legacy that her voice carries. But Miller's assistance goes well beyond simply appreciating Clark's outstanding CV. She perceives something in Clark that many critics don't seem to notice. She is far more than just a scorer because of her exceptional court vision. We must therefore ask, what are your thoughts on all of this? Let us know in the comments how happy you are to see an icon like Miller take the lead. Subscribe and turn on all notifications to make sure you never miss anything.